what white blindness is? It's comfort without consequence, reward without reflection. It's not a mistake, it's design. Most of us float through life thinking things are fair, that everyone gets a shot, that racism is some fringe relic. Those beliefs exist because we've never been forced to learn otherwise. This blindness doesn't come from ignorance alone, it comes from protection, deliberate insulation. The system makes damn sure we never have to see past our own skin. That is white blindness, the illusion of equality in a rigged game. We don't see the fire because we're standing in the only part of the building that is not burning. We don't recognize systemic racism because we don't endure it. It's not aimed at us. It doesn't stalk our children, target our bodies, or deny us opportunity. Instead, it shields us. Our lives are calibrated for comfort while others are suffocating under the weight of generational injustice. Propaganda feeds this comfort. It shows up in schools and movies, on the news, in the myths we were raised on. Slavery ended in 1865. We had a black president. Bullshit. Slavery didn't end, it evolved. The 13th Amendment
Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you're doing super great from wherever you're watching me from. As you know, I'm your host and presenter, Jindu Stories, and this is another video, educational video that we are going to get value out of it. Now, I'm going to talk about the concept of white blindness and the illusion of equality in a rigged game. This is a powerful critique on how structural racism, historical power dynamics, and false narratives sustain inequality. Even in societies that claim to be meritocratic and just, these terms prefer to deep analysis of how white individuals, consciously or unconsciously, fail to see the realities of racial oppression, while systems built over centuries of black colonization, slavery, and segregation continue to disadvantage black people and other marginalized communities. Now, we are seeing these white gentlemen come out and talk about how his community is really treating black folks and how they have this concept called white blindness. White blindness is an illusion, or is a phenomena that everyone thinks that the society is perfect for everybody, that the society is meritocratic, that when you work hard, you're going to achieve this. And people, especially white folks, don't see the hidden structures that benefits them and doesn't benefit black people, and that is what is called white blindness, right? In layman's language, you think that if something is good to you, it's good to everybody. If it's good with you, it's good with everybody. That's what you think, but you don't see that not everyone gets it the same. It is not the same for everybody. When you have an opportunity to work in a good company, doesn't mean that all black people also have the opportunity of working in the big company. So that being said, we need to understand a concept called white blindness. White blindness refers to the inability or unwillingness of many white individuals to recognize the privileges conferred upon them by the systemic racism. It is not merely about even overt racism, but rather a deep-seated ignorance, often willful, of everyday realities faced by racial minorities. This blindness stems from being insulated with predominantly white spaces, that's media, education system, and cultural norms that center whiteness as a neutral or universal. Because white people often don't see how the system benefits them disproportionately, they are more likely to view complaints of racism as exaggerations of reverse racism. This cognitive dissonance perpetuates a society in which injustices remain unacknowledged and unaddressed. Now, I want us to watch this video. I don't want to say much, but I hope this is so much educative, because most of the things that these brothers trying to say is really important, that I feel like we are going to find values out of them. Now, fast forward, if you're watching us for the first time, I'll ask you to subscribe to the channel, join our membership, and really get to see what we can offer you. Until then, let's dive right into it and let's watch the video.
Legalized it through mass incarceration. As of 2025, over 800,000 people, mostly black and brown, are trapped in U.S. prisons, working for cents or for nothing at all. What's worse, we see classism. We see classism because we live it. We know hunger. We know the sting of an empty wallet and an eviction notice. Class war is obvious to us when you're broke. We don't hesitate to curse the billionaires and the CEOs, but when someone points out that racism intersects with that same class war, hits black and brown folks harder, we shut down. We question it. We demand proof. We act like race is an afterthought instead of a driving force. Fact. Black Americans are 5 times more likely to be incarcerated than white folks. Students who are black are 3 times more likely to be suspended. And the wealth gap, still staggering. Black families barely hold 1/10 of the wealth of white ones. Even now, in housing, jobs, education, healthcare, every system, every metric, black people they face obstacles white folks are spared. And still, many white folks say, that's not my fault. Maybe not, but here's the truth. You're still benefiting from it. And choosing to ignore it, that is your fault. You're walking through a system that lets you move freely while others are hunted, and you call that normal? Some say, I'm not racist. Well, that's not enough. Being polite doesn't undo a violent system. Not saying slurs doesn't erase redlining, segregation, or police brutality. Silence keeps the machine running. Neutrality is a shield for power. This isn't about guilt. It's about responsibility. You didn't build the system, but you are riding the wave. And if you're not fighting to dismantle it, you are helping to hold it up. White privilege is not about luxury, it's about escape. We get to avoid the worst parts of the system. We don't have to teach our kids how to survive a traffic stop. We aren't assumed guilty before speaking. That's power, even if we didn't ask for it. Use that power to do something. Read, listen, show up, stop centering yourself. Don't wait for someone to educate you. Your black friend is not their responsibility. Go get uncomfortable on purpose. Make mistakes, apologize, learn, grow, then get back in the fight. Angela Davis said, it is not enough to be non-racist. We must be anti-racist. That means action. It means confrontation. It means risking comfort, risking reputation, risking silence. Others risk their lives just walking down the street. Stop pretending it's someone else's problem. Stop treating racism like a ghost story. It's real, it's deadly, and it's baked into every corner of this country. If you benefit from it, you have a duty to fight it. No more hiding. No more passivity. No more comfortable blindness. Tear the damn blindfold off. Either get in the fight or get the hell out of the way. Evolution ain't some pipe dream or slogan on a protest sign. It is survival now. It's been a long time coming, generations deep. I've had this conversation in foxholes, rehab centers, picket lines, prison yards, and kitchen tables with working folks, conservatives, liberals, leftists, hell. Most people don't even label themselves anymore because no matter what they believed in, the system betrayed them all the same. Left them broke, sick, buried in debt, or dead. This system doesn't malfunction. It functions to funnel every resource, every drop of labor, every moment of your life straight into the pockets of a handful of oligarchs. That's not a bug. It's the design. They give us elections, but not democracy. Wages, but not dignity. Laws, but no justice. Rights on paper and cages in practice. Right now in 2025, 3 men control more wealth than half of the U.S. population. Half. While 60% of Americans can't even handle a $500 emergency. Rents are up 30%, wages are stagnant, over 1 million people are homeless, and our life expectancy is dropping. Meanwhile, politicians argue over who deserves health care. And billionaires build bunkers in New Zealand. And every time we rise up, they crush us. Not metaphorically, literally. They murdered Fred Hampton in his sleep. They hounded MLK until a bullet finished what the FBI started. They locked up Asada, sabotaged unions, infiltrated Black Panthers, Occupy, Standing Rock, BLM, all of it. Not because those people were violent, but because they dared to build power outside of the state. They dared to dream collectively. I've heard old guys at the Legion Hall say, we fought for freedom. And I believe them, but we didn't bring it home. We fought to protect corporate interests. We fought in wars that made contractors rich and left our friends in body bags. You come home and what's waiting? VA backlog, no jobs, opioids, a court system that treats you like a disposable nuisance. And they got the nerve to call that freedom. What we've got is a machine, one that chews through human beings and spits out profit. It feeds off of division, black versus white, rural versus urban, citizen versus migrant, man versus woman. Anything to keep us turning on each other instead of looking up at the parasites bleeding us dry. This ain't a red state versus blue state problem. It's a class war, and most of us are losing because we've been told the enemy is our neighbor. You ever read Eugene Debs? He said, while there is a lower class, I am in it. While there is a criminal element, I am of it. That's not just poetry, it is commitment. We're not going to get out of this by voting blue every 4 years or buying a hybrid car. We're not going to be ethical consumers out of genocide. The system's got its boot on our neck and asks us to be civil about it. We know they ain't going to give us power. They have to be made to give it up. That's what revolution is. Not chaos, not blood in the streets. It's mass refusal. It's a general strike. It's workers taking the factories, tenants taking the buildings. It's communities feeding each other, protecting each other, replacing this death cult economy with something human. Liberals want reform, conservatives want a reset. But both of those still assume the system can be saved. I'm here to say it can't. This system is in crisis. It's a burning house, and we're still arguing about whether to call the fire department or paint the walls. I say we build a new house, not for profit, but for people. Angela Davis said, I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. I can't accept children freeze to death while billionaires take tax breaks. I can't accept another generation crushed by debt, war, and addiction. I can't accept a system that rewards cruelty, punishes kindness, and sells us back our own humanity at a 19% APR. We need revolution. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. Because the longer we wait, the worse it gets. The fire's already started. Question is, are we going to let it consume us? Or are we finally going to rise from it? Because I'm telling you, no one's coming to save us. We're it. You ever notice how in this country, just trying to survive is treated like a damn crime? Being broke is criminalized. Addiction locked up. Mental illness punished. Homelessness ticketed. Parenthood, while poor, they take your kids. Not because you're violent, not because you're dangerous, but because you need help. Because you slipped. Because you're drowning in a system that built the water and tied the weights to your ankles. Let me tell you something most folks won't say out loud. Poverty is violence, and it ain't some accident. It's structured. It's engineered. The whole damn system profits off poor people staying desperate. They act like the jails are full of bad people. Nah, they're full of poor people, sick people, people who got high to numb the pain or lashed out because no one ever showed them love. But you won't see no CEOs behind bars for gutting pensions or landlords fined for letting families freeze in the winter. You steal a loaf of bread to eat, you're a criminal. They steal millions with a pen, they get a bonus. I got locked up more for being broke and sick than I ever did for hurting anyone. You check yourself into a hospital because you're not okay. Next thing you know, you're in paper scrubs with handcuffs on the bed. You try to get sober and they call it liability. You say you're struggling and they say you're unstable. You fall, they stomp on you. And if you're a parent, God help you, because now you're unfit. Now you're dangerous. Now they take your kid before they ever hand you a lifeline. And don't tell me it's just a few bad policies. The whole system is rotten. You think the police are out here protecting us? Protecting anyone? Nah, they're just the cleanup crew for capitalism, caging symptoms while the cause walks free. Over 70% of people in jails across America haven't even been convicted of anything. They're just too poor to post bail. They're stuck, forgotten, tossed aside like trash. Mental health ain't a crime. Addiction ain't a crime. Being homeless, hungry, being hurt ain't crimes. But this country treats them like felonies and gets rich off locking us up, stripping us of our dignity, our kids, and our futures. That's why there's over 2 million people in cages right now in the so-called land of the free. That's why we got 25% of the world's prisoners, but only 4% of the population. This ain't freedom. That's slavery with extra steps. And don't come at me with that reform talk. We tried that. We voted. We marched. We begged. You cannot reform a boot stomping on your neck. You rip the damn boot off. You burn it. You build something better with each other, for each other. No more charity. No more begging. Mutual aid, direct action, and community defense. That's the way forward. The state don't care if we die. So we gotta care for each other like our lives depend on it, cause they do. No more shame, no more silence, no more pretending this is normal. We survived their violence. Now we organize to end it.
Hello, what's up, fam? Welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you are super great from wherever you're watching us from. I'm your host and presenter, Jindok Stories. I'm hoping that you are doing super fine. Now, there are a couple of concepts that I think from what the brothers talked about, it's important for us to have a deep-seated conversation and talk about this and learn these concepts as individuals. As a social scientist student, I've learned enormous things about racism, psychological, political, economical. It is really, really important because it marks all these boundaries, and I think we need to talk about it. Now, let's talk about the rigged game of society. The idea of society as a rigged game suggests that while the rules claim to be fair, equal opportunity, democracy, meritocracy, the reality is that these rules were designed within a context that favor certain groups from the outset. For example, wealth accumulation in the US has a long history of excluding black people. From slavery to redlining, Jim Crow laws, discriminatory lending, the result is a system where white families often start with generational wealth, social and capital and networks that people of color have been historically been denied. Thus, while the rules appear the same on the paper, the players don't begin at the same starting line. Also, you need to understand this concept, the illusion of equality. Modern liberal democracy often celebrates equality as foundational value, leading many to believe that society is fair and colorblind. However, this belief is itself an illusion. Laws may not prohibit explicit racial discrimination, but that doesn't mean structural inequalities have been resolved. Schools in black neighborhoods remain underfunded, high discriminatory persist, and criminal And the criminal justice system disproportionately targets people of color. The illusion of equality is dangerous because it prevents action. If people believe the problem is solved, they stop looking for solution. And that's what has happened. When we walk out and say America is a free racism nation, people will stop looking at the problems that they are facing. People will stop thinking about that, and that's where the problem begins. Let's talk about the historical amnesia and sanitized narratives. White blindness is reinforced by selective understanding of history. Schools, curricula often sanitize onerous and uncomfortable truths about colonialism, slavery, and imperialism. Instead of confronting the brutal legacy of these institutions, many educational systems present a narrative of progress, unity, and freedom. This historical amnesia allows white individuals to feel detached from the benefits they continue to enjoy from past injustices. Without acknowledging the continuity between historical oppression and present inequality, white society can pretend that game was never rigged in the first place. Right? The symbolic gesture versus structural change. One feature of illusion of equality is the tendency to focus on symbolic victories, electing a black president, hiring a few black CEOs, or posting a black square on social media without addressing the foundational system that creates disparity. These gestures allow white society to feel progressive and inclusive without making sacrifices or redistributing power. In essence, the system throws occasional bones to placate dissent while keeping the machinery of inequality running smoothly. A lot of folks, a lot of professors have talked about the colorblind ideology, and this has been used as a tool of oppression. Colorblindness, the idea that we should not see race, is often promoted as a solution to racism, but in practice, it acts as a silencer by refusing to acknowledge race. Colorblind ideology also refuses to acknowledge racial injustice. It becomes convenient excuse for white people to ignore their complicit and unequal system, saying, "I don't see color," allows one to dismiss affirmative action, overlook police brutality, and reject reparation, all while claiming moral high ground. I'm also going to be talking about the biggest myth that America has always sold to black people, and that is meritocracy. One of the strongest pillars supporting the illusion of equality is the myth of meritocracy. The belief that anyone can succeed if they just work hard enough. While this notion is empowering in theory, it overlooks the systemic barriers that different groups face. A black student from a low-income neighborhood must overcome far more to reach the same level of success as a white student from a wealthy suburb. Yet, when both are judged by the same standards, the structural inequalities that shape their lives are ignored. The game remains rigged, but the myth of meritocracy blames the loser for not winning. I'm also going to be talking about racial capitalism and economic exploitation. The rigged nature of game is most evident in economic structures. Racial capitalism refers to the exploitation of racial minorities to build and sustain wealth. For dominant groups, from enslaved labor to underpaid migrants worker to modern-day prison labor, the economic engine of white-dominated societies has long relied on extracting value from black and brown bodies. While today's exploitation is more discreet, it continues through wage gaps, job discrimination, and barriers to home ownership. Economic mobility is often presented as a possibility, but the deck is heavily stacked. I'm also going to be addressing psychological impact on the oppressed. The combination of white blindness and the illusion of equality has profound psychological effects on marginalized communities. When society insists that the system is fair, but your lived experience tells you otherwise, it creates internal conflict, frustration, and alienation. Black people are often told to work twice as hard, yet when they do, they are still met with glass ceilings. This fuels resentment, mental health challenges, and deep mistrust in institutions that claim to serve everyone equality. Now, what's the solution of all this? True process begins with acknowledgement. White people must confront their own blindness, interrogate their privileges, and listen to voices from marginalized communities. Dismantling the rigged game requires a more diversity quotas and anti-bias workshop. It demands a redistribution of resources, land, power, and voice. It means changing not just attitudes, but institutions. It also requires rejecting the myths of neutrality and understanding the equality is not the starting point, it's the goal, and we still far from achieving it. I'm your host and presenter, Agent Stories. Let me know what you think about this. Until then, let me see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.